You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the Meta. The Meta controls everything. The Meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
And we're live.
Yes!
Oh my god.
Oh, I just have to change this because you're not Ghost now. Alright, 1 second.
Sorry everybody, I was adjusting the white balance on my webcam. I was looking like a White Walker, and then I fixed it and thus screwed up everything that Boat had said as far as my chrono.
No, it's actually going to be a lot better now.
Excellent, yeah, I look kind of like a human being.
You look like a human being.
I'll be damned. RDevs, 26 months. Rum Waffle, 49 months. God damn. Koroserum and Reverak. Thanks for supporting the stream,
Yay,
guys.
Bezo Bucks.
It's going to be a pretty interesting stream today. We've got Brisk Rubal, of course, the initiative representative to the CSM, and we have Asher Elias, the 26th best FC in the. And there's a lot of excitement
three
today.
Places. That's kind of scary.
He's been, every single day that goes by, it's up and down. Yeah, these things happen.
Asher, I don't exist. Elias, 21 months. Thank you for your subscription, Jackie. Mad Viking, 27 months, and Raylo Samiras, 32 months.
God damn.
Yay.
Good stuff.
So, we also have another guest. He may or may not be here, so I'm not going to reveal his name unless he just pops in, but you'll see him. And he's a great guest, and we're looking forward to this one. But right away, like immediately, I have to pause and let you all know that there's some shit's going down. And that's why we have to bring on such amazing guests who haven't been on in a while. So, hi. Why don't you reintroduce yourself? Say hello.
Boat, Brisk Rubal, CSM extraordinaire, in it, line member who doesn't do much other than press F1 according to people. I'm happy to be here.
Yay. Mr. Asher.
Oh, I'm supposed to say hi?
People need to know who you are, Ash.
Mitten's already introduced me. I'm the 26th best FC, pending improvement.
Pending improvements.
He's on, it's not academic probation, it's space military probation, I guess.
Double
he's
secret
got
probation.
Yeah, performance improvement program. 2-year mark for Sally Salom.
Yep.
Badass.
And the guy above says, please ask Asher if he's going to make a new Asher Hour episode soon. Please, thanks. Asher?
I have I had a script, written, and I don't script it, but I outline it, And I went back and looked at it, and the script involved why CO2 shouldn't reform. So I didn't write it.
But that's timely, right?
It's I waited so long on it that it is now timely again. So maybe I'll do one.
That is fantastic. Oh. Yeah, it's an interesting bit of sort of news, really. I mean, CO2 has been sort of dying a long, slow death. They should have never reformed in the first place, but they did, and then some jerks blew up all their shit.
That's a great segue. CO2 is officially disbanded. Usually when an alliance disbands and reforms, kind of like CO2, because of what happened with GigX. It's usually because the person that's getting banned says, we're going to keep reforming, I'll just make new characters. GigX himself has announced officially that he will no longer play Eve. The main bullet points from this talk, link to here if you want to listen to it later, it's pretty long, is Goons will never cease to keep me banned. So there's no point for me trying to play a game, I'll just never be able to play again. And then another one was we don't really have anyone who will reliably run the ship because they all left. I think that was the 2 bullet points I got out of that. So, yeah, they're dead. Bye.
It almost got to a bit of being self-aware there when he said that there's nobody around to run the ship, but I'm sure he actually meant to say it in a way that was pointing fingers and casting responsibility toward.
Yeah.
I think it's amusing how he blames us for him being banned, not his own behavior that got CCP to ban him. It's very interesting he still refuses to accept.
The Goon CSM. Yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to me. I think that what has happened is we're seeing the culture in gaming and on the internet itself change, and behaviors that used to be like whatever a few years back are now the kind of things that are getting taken more seriously. So I think that's essentially what happened with GigaX is it wasn't as much of a big deal when he first got banned, and then it also might be related to the shakeup at CCP itself because they've had different folks looking at liabilities. Anyway,
I mean, you bring up a good point because you're starting to see a lot of companies grow up too at the same time. That maybe these companies were started when they were in their 20s, early 20s, and as they get older and more mature, and they realize, well, the jokes that we kind of let slide, maybe we should be more of an adult company. And since we have an adult audience, maybe we should ban people for being dumb.
As Pure Carnage says, when you're for sale, you don't want bad press, which is
yeah.
that also is a thing.
Yeah, you don't want your potential buyer hearing you allowing jokes about being able to type on a keyboard anymore.
There you go.
Anyway,
bye.
So fuck up, basically.
He also made a point to say that like when they moved to the drones, they weren't actually allied with anyone in the drones, and the group we're about to talk about next basically told them, "Look, you're not welcome here. Get fucked," and that's Hard Knocks. And that leads us to a great segue because I heard there's something happening in a space, a wormhole space.
There's something happening.
It is?
Yeah, it is. So if you guys have not seen already, and unless you're living under a rock and don't pay attention to EVE on the weekends, which is entirely possible, the Initiative, along with our vaunted allies in Goonswarm and the rest of the Imperium, are invading Rage. Rage is the nickname for Hard Knocks' home system in J115405. They have been living there for a very, very long time. And the first Keep Star in EVE Online ever put up was Fort Knox in this wormhole. They currently have 2 of them in there, and they are not going to have those by the end of this week.
Ooh. So I want to point out in a little back history, we had the builder of that Keep Star on this show, very, very much on this show, and he pointed out to the cost of that when he originally built it, and their alliance built it. This was Capri Calf's son, Foods. He was one of the guys that was involved with the building of that Keep Star. He said they spent a good $1 trillion to make sure they were the first to get that Keep Star up. So when this thing goes, please don't pay attention to Z-Kill and say, oh, it's just 100 billion. It's Keep Star, who cares? No, this thing was the first. And to be the first in EVE, you've got to spend the bucks. And I guarantee you, $1 trillion is an understatement.
If this thing goes.
Yeah,
well, ye of little faith.
That sort of brings up a good question for people who haven't been paying attention. Brisk, maybe you could talk about what the Initiative's motivation was. Why Hard Knocks? Why the Initiative attacking Hard Knocks? What brought this on? Was it just this is something cool, let's blow it up? Or is there a bit of a backstory? What's the context of this?
I think the context, there's 2 different contexts. I think the first context is, one of the things that we pride ourselves in it and being able to do is doing the impossible and doing things that nobody thinks anybody can do. When we killed the NC Keep Star last time, I guess 2 weeks ago, everybody was concerned, are you going to be able to do that? You're going to fight a Keep Star with the NC Superfleet on grid. Is that going to be possible? And we did it. And, Goons and everybody else working together, we're pretty much able to accomplish anything we put our mind to. So I think this was one of those things where we said, what's the toughest thing in EVE right now to do? And going in and killing Hard Knocks Keep Star in their staging, in their wormhole that they've lived in forever, I think was probably at the top of the list. But the other thing is to be bluntly honest, if you talk to a lot of folks in wormholes, and I've been doing that a lot since I'm kind of the unofficial wormhole representative on the CSM, since they don't have anybody else and I'm the only one willing to do it. The HK is not well liked in the wormhole community. They really have pushed and bullied around a lot of these other groups. So we've had more than one group come and say, hey, would you guys come help us get rid of these guys? And I think after you hear that for like the 15th or 16th time, you kind of think, all right, well, maybe this is a good idea. Maybe this whole wormhole Bushido stuff we keep hearing about, where they're all going to come together and fight to keep nullsec out. Maybe that's a lot of horseshit. And we'll see. But it sounds to me like HK has not made a lot of friends out there. I don't know how many folks are going to want to come riding to their rescue. So I think between those two things, that's kind of what motivated us to do it. Plus, this is going to be fun.
One of the things
Wormhole CFC was more of a meme, but it was also a lot of truth.
One of the questions that I have about this, Hard Knocks for a long time was known to be affiliated with Pandemic Legion. How big of a defensive force have you seen? How much do you expect Hard Knocks and their allies to bring to the table in the upcoming fights, like in terms of?
I mean, that's a good question, and I think the hard part for us to be able to tell is we don't really know what they're capable of bringing and how they're going to get it there. Because right now, this is their staging, it's their home Keepstar, but they've been based a lot of their guys out of Nullsec doing their, running their rental group, and running their little area up in the Northeast. And I wonder how many of them are actually in the wormhole. Right now, we have control, we have whole control over the entrances. We are bringing in fleets as we speak. We've been reinforcing all day long, bringing in more ships, more guys. All of our guys are well aware. We had 600 plus guys in earlier today. That this is going to be a week-long thing minimum. Don't expect to go anywhere. You're going to sleep in the wormhole. You're going to log off in the wormhole. You're going to stay in the wormhole, and we're just going to bring as many people in as we can. And I don't know how many they're going to be able to do. How many they're going to be able to bring. And I don't know how many PL is going to be able to bring if they want to, because wherever they try to enter to get back in the system, they're going to have a fight. So I expect they will. I'm smugging a little bit, but the reality is this is going to be a big fight. It's going to be hard. We know it's going to be hard, but we're looking forward to it. And if this goes the way we are expecting it to go, and all of our months-long, this was a months-long planning kind of thing. If it all goes the way it's supposed to, then we will see at least one dead, two Keepstar, maybe two, and a lot of ISK generated.
So I got a quote here from Sister Bliss, because he could not make it today. He's really busy, but he says, this is for the bullied and the beautiful wormholers who have been oppressed for too long. From what I was told by Sister Bliss is that a lot of the wormholers don't like Hard Knocks, don't like the structure of turning wormholes into rental space, which is what they did. Like, imagine the drones, but in the best wormholes available. By creating this little group between Hard Knocks and Laserhawks and all these guys, they were able to basically turn wormholes into farmland. And then go to CCP and be like, oh yeah, wormholes don't have fights, guys. This is horrible. Well, we need to fix this. You guys have broke it. CCP's fault. When they just turned it all into nothing but renters.
Now, wormhole space is a little bit different when it comes to like hitting a Keepstar, right? There's no asset safety in wormhole space. When you pop this thing, it just drops a can, right?
Yeah, it gets even better.
What are some of the... let me ask the question, though,
sure.
Which is, I wanted to ask Briz, maybe you could explain again, like, because most of our audience are people who live in nullsec or in highsec. When you say that you have whole control, can you just sort of describe in general terms, what does it actually look like when you're invading a wormhole, maintaining whole control, and going after a Keepstar that's different from, say, the kind of Keepstar assault we see in nullsec?
All right, so when you're in nullsec, generally you're going to see you're going to see one or two subcap fleets that are going to be flying around, and then you're going to have a super cap and a Titan fleet that's going to be doing a lot of the damage, or is going to be doing a lot of the protecting, depending on whether it's an online Keepstar, whether it's anchoring. But typically you're going to see a lot of tie-dye, you're going to see a lot of fleets flying around, not doing much to each other, but then they're going to be shooting at each other. And the Titans and the Supers are there basically to provide cover and to try to do as much damage as they possibly can to each other. And you're trying to ref the Keepstar at the same time you're in the middle of these fleet fights. None of that happens in wormholes because there are no Titans and Supers in wormholes. You have to have sovereignty to build a super cap, and there is no sovereignty in a wormhole. So this is going to be subcaps and regular cap type fights. You're not going to see the same type of tactics because the subcap, the Doomsday on a Keepstar can do a ton of damage to a subcap fleet if they're not prepared for it. And at the same time, I think because there's less tie-dye in wormhole space, because there are fewer people on these nodes, some of the stuff that typically doesn't happen in nullsec, super carriers aren't that great for blowing up, say, a Raven fleet in nullsec because of tie-dye. But in wormhole space, I think one of the big concerns that Pando and some of our guys have is that these carriers, a lot of carriers versus Ravens is bad, and I think we're a little nervous about that. But at the end of the day, I think the fact is this is mostly going to be a subcap fight, and that's different than what you would see in nullsec. And then at the same time, in addition to being on grid with the Keepstar and trying to blow the stuff up there, you've got to maintain control over the entrance points. And unlike in nullsec, the entrance points move, and you can roll those holes. And people are rage rolling trying to get entrances into this C5. And that means we have to have additional fleets. Like my job today, I was in a retribution in our Stuka fleet that was basically sitting on the static entry into whatever the hell number it is, Rage's Rage's system, and we were basically trying to make sure that we kept folks from coming in. And as that hole got rolled, we would have to go and move around and scan it down and find the new entrance and go over there. So you have to have coordination in a much broader area than you would normally, and that makes it kind of crazy. So this is very tough for the FCs to coordinate, but we've got some of the best FCs in the game, and I'm confident they're going to be all right.
I'm curious. I wanted to actually ask Asher about the idea of assaulting carriers with just subcaps. If you can talk about that, or in general, like the tactics.
First, as an aside, sometimes I link like my Eve appearances to my non-Eve friends because I enjoy the confused looks and questions. And one of my friends just messaged me and said, "This Brisk guy talks a lot." And yeah, he's a politician.
Pretty much,
Paid for it.
Unfortunately, sorry.
So carriers versus subs, it's a matter of scale. If you have enough subs, then you outnumber the carriers and you can defend them quick enough, then yeah, you can do it. But there's a point where carriers just outscale you, and the thing is the tipping point. It's one of those things where as soon as you hit the tipping point, you go downhill really fast, and you just start getting wiped. So it's going to be a matter of how many can they field versus how many sub.
Yeah. Mittens, one thing that's really important here, and I think the audience might enjoy this, and I was awakened to this just a moment ago before the show, was you cannot clone jump to these citadels. So even if they have clones installed, they can't death clone into the wormhole. So they have to get into the wormhole the same way that everyone else does. The only wormhole space that you can clone jump to is Thera. And I did not know about that till today. So they can't clone back to these holes, and if they get killed and potted, they're sent out of the wormhole. And they have to come back, just like everyone else.
I'm not in yet, but I believe we have hole control, so they're going to have a hard time getting.
According to what I was told before the show by a couple of Nick guys, we control the static, which is one that never changes. It always goes to the same wormhole, so like a C5 to a C5. Or C6 in this case, but the outside that, they're trying to roll holes to get in and try and get control of the static. But like someone pointed out in chat, it's a fight 3 billion big at a time, so only so many ships can plow through that wormhole to try and get control. Yeah.
So when you say 3 billion mass, you're talking about a cruiser fleet, a battle cruiser fleet, or a T3 fleet. When you're talking about null-sized fleets, but you cannot put a battleship fleet through that. You're talking, that's like what, 32 battleships in like a 3 billion mass.
Bliss is watching the show. He says we control the static, and we brought 2 full reinforcement fleets in since we controlled it. That's the thing. You'll see these evictions. If you remember, the Russians that got evicted, that were known for coming out of wormhole space and dropping on everyone, and it was a big to-do thing. We had it here on the show where they lost the first wormhole Keepstar. That was worth hundreds and hundreds of billions in loot that dropped out of this thing. They couldn't get into their wormhole. All the wormhole groups had controlled the hole, and their defense was pennies. They just couldn't do much. Inner Hell, those guys, when they got evicted, because once you lose control of the access, it's very hard to get fleets in there. So if Nick can control the holes up until the death, ooh, buddy.
Exactly, and that's going to be the hard part for us, because the reality of this is we have to have fleets on grid protecting and managing and making sure these guys can't sneak in 1 or 2 at a time for the next week, and that's very hard. But we plan for this. What I will say in regards to the planning of this, I got to give our guys credit. This has been 2 months worth of planning, and the OPSEC on this was absolutely crazy. I mean, this was like D-Day style OPSEC. We were doing tons of random stuff in the game just to make people wonder what the hell are these guys doing, and to cover over all of the stuff we were moving and preparing to get for today. And none of the line members knew. Most of the leadership didn't know. I think it was like a handful of people were told, and ahead of time. And the fact that it didn't leak was critical, because if it had leaked and HK was able to maintain control, there's no way we could have brought the number of ships and fleets that we brought in. I mean, Asher's point about the mass is absolutely right. Like, we were very concerned because we had 2 full fleets of Stukas coming in.
What's
and
a
that's
Stuka?
right. A Stuka is basically, it's a stealth bomber fleet with command destroyers, as well as some Logi and Retributions as some like close-in DPS. But we had about 500 or 600 guys that we were trying to bring in these small bomber-sized ships, and we were worried that we would roll the hole with one or two fleets going in at the same time. So we were lucky enough we were able to stagger it. But I mean, literally, we got all of our guys in, and then the thing closed behind us. We're kind of like, okay, well, Cortez burned his ships. Now we got to win this thing, or it's going to be a very quick fight.
So another little tidbit. This is for the Meta Show only. This has not been revealed anywhere. This comes directly from Sister Bliss. He said, we had been seeding freighters in this wormhole almost up to a year ago, with no one noticing. And we have more to reveal once this all works out at the end. He says there's lots of stuff they've been doing over the last year to prepare for this. It says we've had a single freighter that's been logged out in this wormhole for a year now. That's
why. Like, what's the value? Are you just using freighters?
Oh, he says more than one.
He
says PvP cargo. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So like Astro
So
Houses
basically,
and Citadels and stuff
we
like
brought in all of our guys in bombers, and then we started bringing these Sharons in that were full of our Raven Doctrine ships, which what we used to kill Keepstars. So you could see we were sitting on a POS and dropping unfit Ravens into space, and then having the guys hop in them and fit them up and then fly them off. That was basically the way to seed all the stuff in, so that we didn't have to try to bring a slow-ass battleship fleet that we couldn't even get in through a hole to try to get in there. So that was kind of what that point was, and it was great. I mean, literally, our logistics guys, our infrastructure guys, they cast a very big shadow over Rage.
Plus, you got to realize a lot of things too. Is when a place like a wormhole gets assaulted like this, you tend to build all your dreads and your carriers and stuff inside when you're a wormholer assaulting another wormholer, because the mass of those is so hard to get them in, and because they're so hard to get in, they're invaluable, right? If you've got
it's 3 caps for a Volson's wormhole. It's 3 caps.
And I know for a fact this particular hole, this Hard Knocks one, has a few faction dreads in that Keepstar. They have rolled the hole to come to Delve a few times, and those dreads will literally sit on the hole and dare you to come in and try and shoot them. And then if you show up with 200 dudes, they just work back to their Keepstar and dock up. So we know that those are in there. And those, I think one of them was valued at almost 200 billion for a Dreadnought, just on the fit. So they have some insane stuff inside this Keepstar if it dies. And it's very possible. I mean, we know Hard Knocks has some tournament ships. Those are in this one also, the Alliance tournament ships. So, as someone says here, they have a lot of AT ships in there. So, if you don't get those out, and you're not really going to get them out if you don't have hull control, and you don't have anywhere to really save them up, these things could be dropping like in cargo cans. And I think in one case, it dropped hundreds of cans when the Keepstar died in the wormhole for Inner Hell. Like hundreds and hundreds of cans, because cans can only fit so much. So it's also picking and choosing the cans.
How do you? I mean, let's say they park some Hod Dreads on the Keepstar and are trying to nuke subcaps while they're safely guarded by the PDS and all the other fun stuff. How do you, with a pure subcap, because presumably the attacking forces aren't bringing in their own caps, or maybe they are. I suppose that's probably OPSEC as hell.
Yeah.
How do you go about sieging? This is either to Asher or to Brisk. How do you go about laying siege to a capital defended Keepstar with pretty much entirely subcaps that have to be small for mass limits in the first place?
Obviously the MJD Ravens are going to be a big part of this. I think you have to spread out their caps. Make them less valuable. You know, when they're massed and together, they're very strong. The Keepstar grid and where you can effectively assault a Keepstar from is really large. You cannot cover it fully with all caps. There are definitely strategies to beat Ravens, but we also have a lot of other plans that don't. It's not one point of failure. So I will say that I am a lucky sock type of guy, and you guys are being really congratulatory so far. My hackles are up. I'm worried.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to set expectations that we're going to suddenly be able to do this. We have some people who are in chat are pointing out quite skeptically that we have no idea what we're doing in wormhole space, and that we don't have enough goons. If this was something that had been started off by Goonswarm itself, I would have probably nixed the project to begin with. But the initiative are very good at planning and coming up. And this is, I want to make it very clear here to everyone that when we are doing this as the Imperium, initiative should get the credit for coming up with a plan. Of course, we have to successfully execute it and see how it actually goes through. But this is Terra Nova. Like, part of the reason I'm asking these questions on the meta show is, how the hell do you assault a Keepstar in wormhole space?
If you think,
fuck if I know.
Our guest who's about to arrive any moment, and I think he will arrive any moment, because his group just got into this wormhole. So it's not just initiative, and you're going to see who that is in a moment, I think, when he gets in here. Hopefully.
What a tease.
Yeah, he just said, are you guys still going? And I said, all right, get in here. And we'll see what he says. But if you look at the NC Keepstar that died just recently, that'll give you a perfect example of how this one could die. That was killed for what we watched, which is subcaps. Lots of MJD and Ravens and bombers, and you had a couple of fleets protecting the Ravens from fighters, and that could very well be how this Keepstar dies. Just an absolute thousands of caps.
And just to Asher's point, I want to be clear. Some of this is smugging, and we're just having a little bit of fun because it's kind of cool. Nobody's tried an invasion of a wormhole from a nullsec group to a wormhole group like this ever. So it's we're all in virgin territory. But the HK guys, look, these are some of the best guys in the game, some of the best PvPers in the game. They know what they're doing. This is their home turf. They know wormholes like the back of their hands. They've forgotten more about wormholes than most of us have ever learned. And I'm positive that they will have tricks that we don't see coming, and that these fights are going to be pretty hefty fights. And it is by no means assured that this is going to happen. We lost a large number of Ravens when we were reffing the Keepstar earlier. I expect that we're going to have a lot of fights trying to maintain control, and it's going to be a marathon because, like I said, we're going to have guys going 24 hours a day through every time zone, 23 hours a day through every time zone, to make sure that we can keep this thing going. And if we don't do that, we're going to lose. And so Asher's absolutely right. And while it's nice to smug a little bit, the reality is this is going to be a big fight, and the chances of us pulling this off are probably about 50-50. So if that good. So we're going to fight hard, and I know HK is going to fight hard, and it's going to be great. It's going to be some of the best fighting in EVE we've had in a while, and I think that's a benefit to everybody.
The carriers are going to have to figure out how to deal with my Tenement Sniper Kitsune fleet, though. So I'll just throw it on the gauntlet.
I can't wait. I want to see.
So is there anything, now that Imperium forces have whole control, at least at this moment, is there anything that can really, like, what would it take to stop us from just throwing more bodies into the fire, right? Like, is there anything that Hard Knocks or their allies could do to prevent us from just packing more flesh?
Well, I mean, if they can interrupt, if they can interdict our fleets and catch us while we are moving, because obviously they know where we're coming from. We're going to be coming from Fountain or from Quirius or from Delve, so they know generally how to get where we are. And if they, at the same time, while we're fighting in the wormhole, we're not protecting our space. So theoretically, if they come and want to start in Tosa Singer, starting to do some soft stuff in our space, we're not going to be able to do a lot about it. So I think that's kind of what I would expect to see them do, start putting pressure on us in our territory while they can't get into theirs, and try to force us to decide, all right, do we protect our rental space? Do we protect our home systems? Or do we keep doing what we're doing? We'll see.
So
We have
perfect
Haiwanto
timing.
has just joined us.
He might be Robot, he says, but Haiwanto was the guest I was hinting at earlier, guys. Apparently the Snub Fleet just arrived in the hole about an hour ago, so he says he's going to pop in and out as he can, and he'll know if he'll be all scraggly.
I want to open this up to just chat in general because I want to make no bones about the fact that I don't know a fucking thing about assaulting a CubeStar in wormhole space. This is like way outside my territory of knowledge, so I'm not going to even try to act like I'm not ignorant about it or about the nuances of wormhole fights. I spent some time on that real shit in Goku with Whole Squad for a bit, but that's the hard knock stuff is at a different scale. So what I ask people in general is if people know what the largest war fleet of hard knocks anybody has actually seen in the field. Are we talking about 60 guys in caps? Are we talking about 100 guys? Do they have 250-man fleets? Like, what are we talking about here that people expect to see on the field from the defenders? And I also open that up to any of our commenters here.
Real quick, Sorticus in chat. Deadco will answer the call to save and it's solved after they saved our Titans in Declan, capital.
Nice.
So we have people in chat. Ron USMC. If I think if that's who I think it is, that's Ron Mexico. And
Yeah, that's Test Dude.
no, wrong guy. Okay, sorry, my bad. About 200 to 300. It depends if Laserhawks gets in there with them. Laserhawks and them control wormhole space with pretty big fleets. The question I had, and maybe Hai can answer this for Brisk if Hai works. The question I had too to go along with that is, when I saw 500 Stuka bombers, how do those do against the wormhole style, 3 or 4 billion-esque T3s that have crazy expensive fits and tanks and the works? You know what I mean?
That's just to get into the whole boat. Like it's not. That's not what they're going to be fighting in. Obviously, they didn't bring Ravens into the hole, so.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I looked at I covered for a week the Inner Hell killing, and when they killed that Keepstar, they controlled the holes with their fleets, but they only used 50 carriers to kill the Keepstar because Inner Hell had no way to get to that Keepstar to defend it. They were trying to break in through the wormholes, and they just never did. So. The question is do you even need that much to kill the Keepstar if you control the hole in? And maybe the wormholers in chat can answer that.
You think about how much stuff they have in that hole and in Rage, like how long. I mean, Bo, go look at your 1DQ. And by the way, we need to come up with a nickname for 1DQ to have like cool.
We'll ask chat. Don't worry, we heard about this.
A cool nickname. We can't recall it 1DQ anymore.
It's gonna be like Rage or Polaris or.
What about Dairy Queen? What about can we just call it Dairy Queen from now on?
Dairy Queen was a great name. Someone else said it.
DQ.
No, I like the idea of Dick Butt. Someone says we should call it Matanigrad.
No.
That's
Sorry, Vince.
Ardev says Matanigrad.
Matanigrad got that name because of the siege of VFK, because it was actually Stalingrad in fucking space. So yeah. 1DQ1 is more like a Dairy Queen than.
I like Dairy Queen.
The reason a lot of people are saying chat Matanigrad, but one I liked in Elysium what got spammed a lot was Dick Butt. I mean, that was
anyway, I distracted you, Bo,
sorry.
But yeah. So look at your hangar in 1DQ and look how much stuff you have there.
Oh no, yeah, no. That's what I'm saying. If this thing goes kaboom, I'm
not talking about for loot. I'm talking about for
what you had to defend.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Yeah,
look, our Stuka fleet puts out heavy DPS. I mean, that is it's designed to kill triple Ansel Rorquals. That's what it's designed for. So and frankly, we need that kind of DPS. If these guys start bringing faxes and stuff, faxes are OP in wormholes. We all know that. That was part of the reason why we try to nerf them. So if they start bringing stuff in and saving their carriers as we're trying to kill them as much as possible, and then they can just dock up and get more fighters and come back out, it's going to be tough. Yeah. So that's something I'm concerned about if we have enough DPS, but that's why we need as many bodies as we can get in there.
I wish we could have had a wormholer guy on here. I thought about trying to find it, but all the wormholer guys I know quit the game a long time ago, a couple years back, after we got Rich from the North. Oh, hey, Hi's able to talk. Hi.
Yeah. I mean, why do you need wormhole guys? They're just going to talk about the arranged fights and stuff they normally have and how they can't fight Panda because Panda's actually.
I come in hard. You know what, dude? It's a lot better to trash talk before the fight than after. I appreciate it. It's so lame when you've already won the fight to drop the trash talk. And I've done it before, so I'm gonna you could just call me a hypocrite. But yeah, do it before so they could shove it in your face.
The reason I ask, and Hi, maybe you can answer this then, is this is not low sec, right? You're going to get potted and you're going to be sent out of your wormhole. How quickly does a guy get back in a tie-dye fight? Because you're going to get potted in tie-dye. There's very rare are you going to get your chance to get your pod out. Maybe you'll get probed out after you crash. There's no guarantee that their pods are going to be safe if they lose their ships. So even if they have 10 backup ships, Asher, how do they get into another one if, say, they don't make it back to the wormhole? Wormhole gets rolled.
Kind of.
God.
Oh, yeah, it kind of depends on where they sit. Because if they're sitting on the keep stand, they die. They can just stock up because their pod's going.
That makes sense.
Exactly.
I don't think they'll ever be the Keep. I'm going to go ahead and predict that we're not going to lose a single ship doing this. I think it's going to be a clean sweep.
I don't know about single ship. I mean, I don't think we'll lose a single structure.
What?
Zero Gravitas in the chat is absolutely right. The CSM nerfed faxes to smooth the way for this fight.
I wanted to accuse you of that. I forgot. I got distracted. It sounded like you admitted to being complicit in this preparing for this campaign by nerfing faxes.
The entire reason I ran for CSM was to get on just to nerf faxes for this.
Asher.
The long
so
game.
deep.
A couple of wormholer guys point out you can't dock with aggro and tether, and tie-dye, that's a couple of minutes, you know?
That's true. I
your
mean, that's
pod's
one
not
of the things
gonna-
that's going to be really fascinating here about this is CCP, like, how stable has the server been thus far? Like, are we dealing with like a low sec node equivalency of, oh shit, nothing works, tie-dye to fucking back? What have you guys seen so far?
I mean, from what I've seen, I had one disconnect jump in the wormhole, but that has been a thing for a while. When you have a lot of fleet guys going through and hitting the wormhole at the same time, you get random disconnects. But overall, things have been relatively stable. Although I will say that, I mean, we were hitting 25, 20, 15% tie-dye just traveling to the wormhole to get there. So we had a lot of guys going through some high sec areas to get where we went. So that was kind of a pain in the ass. But so far inside the wormhole has not been that much of a problem.
Mittens, you might like this, though, is no one's going to have an accurate idea of what both sides have because there's no local. This is a wormhole fight, so you're not going to know, is there 300 snuff in local right now? Or not snuff, I use snuff because I'm dyslexic and I'm thinking snuff. But is there 300 hard knocks ready to go? Or is there really only 50 inside? You might be able to tell from what's stocked, but then that could be other alliances. And then same for us. They're not going to know if we have 3,000 people in there or 500. It's going to be
we had that problem too. We had that problem when we're trying to figure out where's the other fleet? How many guys do we actually have here? The line guys were talking about, and you can't tell. The other thing I will note is that I fully expect that we are going to lose some structures because we dropped 30 Raitarus on the grid, the Keepstar grid. So I'm sure they're going to kill at least one of those. We'll see.
I'm moving my fleet now, but our hole's a little small. But I learned this trick from ProGod where if you all jump on the same tick, you can get infinite mass through one hole. So I'm not worried at all.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I think this is interesting. So one of the things that's curious about the meta show is a lot of times people tune in when their side, besides the normal like Imperium viewership, when their side gets to be the target of some sort of a major event.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's fascinating because we're seeing in chat a whole bunch of basically wormhole people and a whole, wormhole people trying to like educate or make fun of nullsec people. And the level of confusion on both sides is hysterical. So there's somebody who I'm going to assume for the sake of argument is actually a wormholer who is like, you guys, your SOV is going to be completely vulnerable. And, it's going to be like open season. So like from a nullsec perspective, everybody's like, ha ha ha, what the fuck do these guys know? But then at the same time, what's fascinating about this situation, and before, when I say fascinating, before I was just like, okay, yeah, sure, we're gonna these guys in like a few weeks are gonna hit Hard Knocks this thing. Who cares? I was totally unengaged. I didn't give a shit. But now I'm starting to get kind of engaged and interested because there's such a gulf of ignorance on both sides of this. The wormhole guys have no idea how nullsec empires work. The nullsec empire guys, and it probably did their homework and knows what's going on. But the rest of us, we use wormholes to get from point A to point B to kill each other, and that's about as far as it goes. So you're going to see just a tremendous amount of ignorance and confusion and surprise on all sides in this interaction, and it's probably one of the first. Actually, this is going to be one of the first times in EVE in a while where something has popped up, and I am completely clueless. I don't even have a suspicion as to how this is going to play out because there's just so many unknown unknowns.
You all remember your first time. It's probably fumbling and awkward, but we're hoping for an explosion at the end.
I love you, Asher.
Wait, no. In that analogy, Asher, isn't the explosion a lot quicker than expected?
If you're hoping it's working well on your first time, but you're probably not hoping it's going to be quicker than expected. You're hopefully you're going to do on the first round. Yeah, I appreciate all the subscriptions we're getting here. It's pretty cool. We've got a lot of interest all the way around.
Someone answer this question because I don't know this, and someone tried to point me to patch notes, and I didn't read them because I'm lazy. But K-Killer brings up a great point. That's AdeptDB for those that don't know. The final timer in wormholes are different. Now, I don't know what that means. If someone could educate the show here.
Basically, in order to kill something in nullsec, you kill it, but you got the timers are based on the ADMs in the system, and the higher the ADM, the longer you get in terms of reinforcement timers. There are no ADMs in wormhole space. So, basically it takes a week. We have a 24-hour different time tomorrow. At some point we have to do the armor timer, and then we have 7 days, and then we have to finally kill the thing. So it's faster. It's kind of like killing a structure in high sec or low sec rather than in null sec. But that's something that our guys have to get used to.
Wormhole space is shorter than...
it's a lot shorter.
It is short. It is shorter. It's the shortest. But I don't know how the numbers off the top of my head, but I know that it's
someone's saying 24 hours only.
Yeah, because in low sec, on the final timer can be up.
They're sequential. They're like the timers are sequential. They just come out basically the day after. Essentially, is the way to look at it.
Yeah, there's no structure timer with a 6-day delay in wormhole spaces. That.
Right. Yeah. So instead of being a minimum of a week or longer,
24.
right? It could literally be 24 is what they're saying here. If unpowered, it's really bad. That's the question we have. We're gonna find out in just a few minutes here, or not minutes. I guess tomorrow, if it's gonna be faster or not than a full week. It depends on when they set it too, because if they set it for armor timer is definitely tomorrow. We are aware of this according to Sister Bliss. Armor timer is tomorrow, but the question is, when is the final timer?
I know, but I don't know for
all the Astrahus is good 4 hours straight to structure. Like it's just standard how.
Yeah, I know those do.
Hey guys, how do I use the new jump gate? I've never.
Okay, this. Asher, warp to it.
Click on it.
Click and
right
then
click.
Right click jump. Yeah.
And then it'll ask you if you want to pay them money.
I want to talk about this. I did a random op this week, and I want to give a shout out to CCP for reintroducing the highway to the game because somebody showed me this. I didn't know our route was set this way, but I literally went from the middle of Delve, and we landed up in Upper Fountain in J5A with 0 fatigue, and it took us 6 minutes from the time we left 1DQ to get there. So thank you, CCP, for making it so that if you own Solve and defend Solve and caretake Solve, that you're able to travel very quickly from point A to point B again. So thank you for that.
We're at the 45-minute mark, so we're going to go into Cool Kids only mode. So for people who are new to the show, we do this as a reward to subscribers. If people have questions, we ask them to the panel. So we usually go subscribers only for the last 15 minutes of the show. I'm really kind of curious about this because there's a lot more interest in this. Not too much is happening in EVE, so this currently has like the focus of a lot more people than anticipated. So, are we, if there is a whiffed timer, is this the kind of thing where this becomes like a full-scale Imperium commitment to this? Like if we screw up on one of these timers, are we... what do you, speaking for the initiative, risk? Like, is this going to be we're going to bash into this until it's done, or what do you think?
I think, we've prepped all of our guys to tell them, look, don't expect to go crabbing in the next week. Don't expect to go doing anything else. tell your girlfriends and your wives, sorry, honey, I can't do anything. I have to be in a hole for a week. So that we're kind of committed. And I think, frankly, that's a good thing because we haven't had any good fights since the GOTG thing. So finally having something to do and some way to channel all of our rage into rage.
You've been waiting to make that pun the entire
time. Yes. We got it done. So I think our guys are going to be excited. But like I said, it's going to be a marathon, and that's going to make it tough. But we're going to get there.
I think the element of surprise is huge here because again, it all comes down to controlling that hole, and if you've got a good grip on that hole, it's not going to go anywhere, and you're going to be able to do with what you want with it. So.
All right, I'm going to ask the stupid question that's probably on the minds of at least one other person besides myself, which is when we're talking about hole control, that means controlling the access and basically nuking any incoming wormhole connections or making sure you have a fleet on the other side. What does hole control actually look like mechanically or tactically? Like, what does that mean? And boats away, so we're going to have to do this. I'm going to ask Asher, why don't you explain what hole control?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of the blind leading the blind. I mean, what it is that you...
Maybe we can get High to explain it to us.
So they're, like, to get in the wormhole, there's only a set number of entrants, usually a static, and then there's going to be, like, another wormhole, right? But like, keeping people out means keeping it at a certain mass and then controlling it so that it can't be rolled over. So that's the whole control, is having your fleet there or being able to stop someone from rolling it and resetting the mass and resetting the connection, because they're going to try to get reinforcements in, presumably.
Yeah.
And so that's what you're trying to stop.
An interesting thing about the static too, and correct me if I'm wrong here, wormhole guys, but this is what I was told, is that once the static is rolled, it just appears in the two connections appear the same. It's just somewhere else in space. So you got to go find it, get control of it quickly, and keep control of the static in that sense, so that no one else can sneak in. Is that what I'm?
Yeah, you can keep rolling.
Go ahead. Hi.
Yeah. So you keep rolling the static. So, for example, if you're doing hole control and it goes into like laser hawk staging, obviously that's a bad thing. So you roll it again, and then a new fresh static will spawn straight after you roll that hole. So like the static will continuously spawn. So you can kind of control where the wormhole goes, if that makes sense. But then you have to roll it a lot of times to get a favorable one. But it's been done before like that. But basically, they're gonna have to have hole control for like 24/7 to not let anyone in, because you can't just like do it for like EU time zone then not US time zone. You have to do it all day.
Do we have any? I mean, was this timed in such a way that Hard Knocks had a fleet outside of Rage and like their dudes weren't there at the time, or like do we have any idea how many people are like active that are hostile in the hole?
I mean, we're not 100% sure. How do you have any idea?
I don't think no, because they haven't like deployed anything. They have SOV in nullsec, but they don't really do anything with that. They are all in there, and I think hole control is a big thing for this, but I don't think that's the defining factor, because they do have a lot of stuff in those key stars, so they will put up a big defense.
That makes sense.
And I think the other thing, we had joked about, well, if we really wanted to be sure we would win this thing, we just hired them to go do something for 2 weeks, and then they wouldn't be able to stop us. That would have been funny, but we thought it would be more fun if they actually fought.
I mean, I have like 100% faith in Pando. Pando is a really good FC. He's learned from Mama Bliss and Papa Darkshines, and he's come a long way like in terms of FCing. Like he's one of the best subcap FCs in the game, and like he couldn't speak English when he joined in it, and he's learned English while being in it. So if that kind of shows how far he's come, he does learn a lot quickly. And I do think that he's gonna knock this out of the park. He's put a lot of prep into this, and I have 100% faith in him doing it. If he can kill NC.Keepstars, he can kill this.
I learned English from Boat.
And then well, it depends. Were you one of my second graders? Because if so, then you probably have. But
it's entirely possible.
Yeah.
I will say Pando's accent is much easier to understand than Darkshines, so that helps.
I mean, last
German
week
versus
English is a second language versus Irish is a first.
Last week we
Sister
broke
Bliss
down
though is
sentences.
amazing, because Sister Bliss says like portal through and stuff like that, and motherships.
But here's my thing.
Sister Bliss is doing a Lord Malador roleplay for the last few years.
Oh God.
I mean, there's
Asher, answer this. Oh, sorry.
well, like in F7C, like the one where Darkshines lost his Titan, we were doing coordination, and the Sister Bliss was in a private chat with us because we were still doing in-game coordination then, and he said, "I'm going to blunderbuss them," and I didn't know what that meant. I thought he was just going to dread bomb them, and then like out of nowhere, we see like 4 Titans just come in, and then we're like, "Oh fuck!" and like init bosons their dreads, and then we spend like the next hour or two in tie dye. That was.
I'm really kind of curious to see who comes to the table here to defend Hard Knocks, because there have been such a long time that people have been saying that, you know, they were supported by PL, which is one of the reasons that people didn't make a serious run at them. And obviously they've been allied with Laserhawks forever. But it's going to be interesting to see what sort of political capital they're able to put on the table to get defenders of any kind. And if anybody actually does show up. Do we know at all, or have we seen on the field thus far, any allies that have come to Hard Knocks' side so far?
I just had a Wormhole Corp contact me asking if they could help us. So
Yeah.
looks like maybe the chickens are coming home to roost.
I mean, that's the thing. I mean, look, if you look at what Hard Knocks has done over the years, you know, and I give them credit for it because it's a very, you know, Imperium style thing to do, is they have literally locked down any C5 or up that you basically have to go crawling on your knees to them to get any kind of space. So half these wormhole groups are in C4s and below because they can't. Anytime anybody tries to do anything any higher than that, they end up getting pushed out. So I think a lot of the wormhole guys are sitting back and gloating now that HK is finally getting their comeuppance. So I would be very surprised to see how many folks come rushing to their aid. And, you know, like I said in the beginning of the show, all this talk about wormhole Bushido and everything, I think a lot of that's just horseshit. They'd like to say that, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of folks are going to be looking at this and saying, that's a shame, and they're going to go read the paper.
Well, there's a lot of alliances. Like, for example, you know, Hard Knocks is called the Wormhole, like runs the Wormhole CFC, right? So there's like a lot of Wormhole alliances that are allied to them, kind of like Laserhawks, for example. You know, the same way that, you know, you have Bastion with Goonswarm and shit, you know, the shittier alliances are going to have to help the big boy alliance when they need the help.
Now.
Yikes. Yikes from me, dog.
Here's two things to think about. One is how important is, you know, how good has their relationship been with all their 0-0 buddies they've been working with. You got to remember, when they took the drones, Hard Knocks owns a chunk of it for renting, and they also are blue and work with Skill U. They recently just blued Pandemic Horde because they gave Pandemic Horde a chunk of systems to rent for their elitist group up in Cobalt Edge. So that blue relationship had just started a couple weeks ago. Will Pandemic Horde be coming? Is that relationship with Goblins good or not? I mean, we know how Goblins is, but... and then another question is, Asher, from your experience, I mean, you've been, and I'm on the fleet with you currently, waiting to get into this hole, I guess, waiting your turn, as it were. How has that been going, you know, maybe Asher or Brisk or someone, or even Stuff when you guys got in, of getting into the hole? I mean, we control the hole, and it just kind of feels like a port of docking. We're not, you know, you have to wait your turn to get a chance to dock at the port and unload your guys.
Yeah, we're all in traffic control. Basically, you use up all the mass on the static, and then you roll a new one, and then you use up the mass again, and you have to find connections each time. So it takes a while, but we have loaded in quite a few individuals. And
yeah.
I appreciated that maritime reference, by the way. That was very nice.
I figured, you know, I figured it'd help Brisk with, you know, everything. I just got an image. Says, oh god! All right, it's been linked in chat by Brisk. If you guys want to click it, so Darkshine's linked this to us also. He says this is their Raven fleet. So if you want to click the link by Brisk, you'll understand. It's pretty kind of hilarious. But that's the thing. It almost comes down to who's better at probing: the guys that have owned wormhole space for a very long time, or the guys who use wormhole space to travel. Because in you know, how many of these expert wormhole groups that just can't stand Hard Knocks have been waiting for an opportunity for 2,000 people to show up and help them evict Hard Knocks? How many of them are going to come along? I mean, does Inner Hell with its group of 60, 70 regulars come along, there's so many questions.
Actually, that's something that we should probably just throw out here, because it occurs to me that there might be a lot of unaffiliated wormhole entities that are curious about getting involved, and we should probably figure out and vet that to make sure it's not actually like an HK guy, like bringing people in under a false flag. But diplomatically speaking, this is going to be quite curious. You're going to have a whole bunch of people that have never dealt with nullsec entities probably looking to try to get in touch with the Imperium to say, like, hey, can I bring 50 dudes and help shoot these guys? And then the Imperium is going to have to figure out, oh, like, are these guys actually on our side, or are they secretly Hard Knocks allies? And like trying to figure out who's going to be on what side in a system where you can't really see who is even there until people show up on a D-scan or on the group. It's going to be fascinating.
It just so happens that we do have the wormhole representative for the CSM, and he happens to know most of the wormholers. So, an initiative, by the way. So that's kind of perfect, and his name's Brisker Ball.
There you go. It's actually kind of funny because we were laughing when the fleets formed up and everybody started seeing all of our staging spike. Pando and Shines and the guys were getting inundated with direct messages and IMs and everything, begging, "Where are you guys going? Are you coming for us? What's going to happen?" And when folks realized what we were doing, all the tone changed to, "Can we come with you? We want to help you." I mean, I had Doom Chinchilla begging on Twitter to hey, come, we want to help, let us help. I'm like, okay, go talk to Bliss. So I think a lot of people are seeing this and they're excited. Whether or not we let them come and have any share of the glory is not up to me. But you never know. It'll be fun.
Here's an interesting tidbit. I'm on this move up trying to get to the wormhole, and there's Hard Knock Associates, which is their 00 entity and rental group. Dictor's trying to slow down the Fountain train that's coming to come into this wormhole. It's pretty great. And that's, I guess, another question too, is how much of their 00 assets, again, Hard Knocks Associates, the renters, the people who, I mean, most of Hard Knocks lately, in the last few months, all I've seen them do is drop supers on things, right? They just run around with like a super fleet in the drones, and they drop on random people they don't like. And I really haven't seen them do much. You haven't heard any news about them, at least since summer. I haven't. So I'm curious to see. People said in chat, oh, they have 200, but do they? Do they still have it?
It's going to be also curious.
More than 200. They will have more than 200, I guarantee.
Yeah.
It's just going to be a question of how many are we going to have, because we can't even really tell how much we have until the day of.
Weekend assault on your home Keepstar. Like this is like the thing is, as much fun as it is for us, this is what you dream. Like you would dream that someone comes and assaults you on your terms, right? And there's nothing more on your terms than on your home wormhole that you put 2 Keepstars in. Like that's as much fighting in your territory as is possible. But is there a World War II analogy for this?
I don't have any analogies right now because I'm trying to read. Some wormholer guy messaged me in game. He sent me an email. He's been watching your stream. So when it comes to hole control, are you guys cycling down the hole sizes? If not, holy shit! I have no idea what the fuck he just said. That terminology.
So what you do is you get the hole really low mass, like you run a bunch through it, so that they can't get on the other side of the hole and just jump a fleet in and fight you. Like 2 or 3 ships will collapse.
Okay,
hole.
yeah, I get that then, but I
That's
thought
what he's asking you.
Okay, and that's my question though is, how much effort? I mean, maybe someone else asked this. How much effort is it to literally crit a hole really quickly? They send 3 or 4 battleships through, and then boom, they're on their way to the new one. It seems like, in my opinion, it's a lot easier if you're in the hole to which you're trying to get to find the new one as it appears, and then reposition your fleet.
Yeah, that's exactly what the whole control is about. It's about your
I say like, this.
The new static will appear obviously in Rage. It'll appear in the system. Yeah. So if they're on the other side of the wormhole, right, and they roll it by sending a few battleships through, now they're locked out because that wormhole's gone. They're not connected to Rage anymore. So that wouldn't work. Like, but the person in Rage has all the control. That is the whole control.
Yeah,
that we're
this
discussing.
is the reason I say this, and I'm not trying to sound. I'm trying to sound ignorant on purpose because we had quite a few people in chat say, I don't play Eve that much, or I only do low sec, or I only do high sec. What are you guys referring to when you say hole control, or what are you referring to when you say this? So I'm trying to get the discussion on that because a lot of times...
I'm really glad that CCP didn't nerf the 500 MN Hick thing. That was pretty...
You know what I was really disappointed by? I started playing in '09, and I think that's right when Wormholes came out. And I always pictured some sort of Star Trek Deep Space Nine crazy looking inside of a wormhole. I didn't realize it was just connections, like they were just gates to regular star systems. When I went into a wormhole, and I was like, oh, this is just like a solar system. This is really boring. I was very sad.
It's so spooky. Oh.
Yeah.
I was really hoping for like some movie Contact, where she like flies through the wormhole, and you get that experience whenever you go into a wormhole instead of just appearing and it making a funny sound.
So we're pretty much out of time here.
Next
but
week's going to be fun.
This is just going to be a fascinating situation all the way around because it's novel, and one of the things that I think is lacking in nullsec warfare currently is novelty. So there's been a lot more interest in this from the Imperium side than I had initially predicted, and it makes sense. It's keep star kills potentially. It's like a weird side of EVE that people don't normally get to be in, and it's kicking over sandcastles, which is kind of our thing. So yeah, I think it's going to be fascinating, and I expect that I'm just going to go ahead and put a marker down, unless it's an utter slaughter and we're completely humiliated in a way that is really weird and different from when we get our asses kicked in other ways. I would expect us to just sort of keep going at this for a bit until they die, because what else? Not too much else is going on, and it's weird and nifty.
We're almost out of time here.
We hope initiative knock over Hard Knocks, and then they immediately decamp to space, leave Fountain, and become the Wormhole CFC themselves. They become the thing they hate.
So here's something. Wormhole in chat goes, it's very possible they're sitting in a C6 static of their own at the moment and rolling their static, hoping to appear in Rage. I don't know how that works. I mean, if you still have your Wormhole active, your static connection, can they do that? Can they roll a new hole into the C6 that you're currently in, which C6 has obviously Rage? Can they roll from the outside and get that if they're in another C6 static? Question marks. I like this. Because I honestly don't fucking know. Yeah, we'll find out. Stay tuned, because I guarantee next week is the last week of school, so a lot of half days going on before winter break. So there's very possibility that you'll see right here on INN a live stream of that Keepstar dying from me. Right here.
How is Wormhole formed?
Yeah, so everyone in chat, okay, here we go. Yes, they can. Yes, they can. So they can sit in a C6 with a fleet, roll that C6 a bunch, and hopefully get lucky and get to Rage.
It's a C5, but yes.
Oh, C5, sorry.
Sorry to contradict you, Boat.
No, you're fine. I don't know this shit. I'm just all on for the ride, okay?
All right. Well, that is it for this week. I want to thank everybody for coming, especially our guest. This is fascinating, and it's really cool to see this two entire different worlds and paradigms and ways of doing battle colliding over the next few days in Raid.
Yeah.
Times. So thanks everybody for coming, and we will catch you all next week. Same
Yeah.
time, guys. Same channel.
Love you.
See you guys. See ya.
Bye, guys.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not